minutes. Please take this time to silence all electronic devices. Thank you. I should have given a 1 minute warning. This is awesome. On behalf of the Chief of Transportation, Colonel William C. Arnold, I am pleased to welcome you to today's graduation ceremony for the Marine Engineering Officer and Marine Deck Officer Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25. During the ceremony, please feel free to come forward to take photographs at any time except during the playing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the playing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Members of the official party for today's graduation are Chief Warrant Officer 4 Retired, Robert Brockman, Deck Training Officer, SUNY Maritime Academy. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Brian Beck, Class Manager, Marine Engineering Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, United States Army Transportation School. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Timothy Carter, Class Manager, Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, United States Army Transportation School. Lieutenant Colonel Cornell DeShare, Mr. Topping, CDB-5 Allen, CDB-5 Deans, CDB-5 McCartan, CDB-5 Sen, CDB-5 Thrawn. Wow, a lot of CDB-5s today. Other distinguished guests, family and friends. On behalf of the Chief of Transportation, Colonel William C. Arnold, welcome to the graduation ceremony for the Marine Engineering and Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25. These officers have completed 36 weeks of intense technical training and have accomplished all standards set in their path. The Marine Engineering officers have achieved an overall academic average of 94.24%, and the Marine Deck officers have achieved an overall academic average of 92.30%. In addition to receiving their Warrant Officer Basic Course Graduation Diploma and Marine Certificate, they will also be receiving a Certificate of Investiture, inducting them into the United States Army Transportation Corps. These students will also receive certificates of completion in medical care provider, combined basic and advanced firefighting, CPR and first aid, and confined space entry. Today is an honor to have Mr. Brockman as our guest speaker. CW3 Carter, the Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course Class Manager, will introduce the guest speaker. Please welcome CW3 Carter.
Good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce today's guest speaker. Chief Warrant Officer 4, retired Robert Brockman, is a native of Montgomery County, Maryland. He was drafted into the Army in 1970 and attended basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. He attended AIT at Fort Eustis and became a 61 Alpha 10 seaman. In 1976, he was appointed as a warrant officer in the United States Army. Mr. Brockman's assignments include 469 Transportation Detachment, Cam Ranh Bay, Republic of Vietnam, 5th Transportation Company, Ford Island, Hawaii, and U.S. Army Transportation School. His educations include Harborcraft Deck Officers Course, Warrant Officer Advanced Course, Warrant Officer Senior Course, and Associate's Degree in Surveying Technology from Pennsylvania State University, and a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from Christopher Newport University. Mr. Brockman's awards and decorations include Meritorious Service Medal, Army Accommodation Medal, 4th Award, Vietnam Service Medal, 2nd Award, and the Republic of Vietnam Gallantry Cross Unit Citation with Palm. In his retirement, he continues to study mathematics and navigation at his home, Appalachian Mountains, and spends his summers with SUNY Maritime sailing the TS Empire State. For a complete biography on Mr. Brockman, consult your program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce Maritime Army legend, CW4, retired Brockman.
Geez, this many W5s since the original 10 got me in their office. Mr. Topping, distinguished guests, Colonel Desher, welcome, and all the distinguished guests and families, welcome to the graduation exercises of the Deck and Engineering Warrant Officer Basic Course 002-25. I am truly honored to be the guest speaker on this august occasion, and I thank you, the class, for the invitation to speak. I only hope my remarks will meet the standard for this momentous occasion. As I drove on to post this morning, I realized that it was 55 years ago, in this month, September, that I showed up on Fort Eustis in the middle of the night and started my career as a maritime officer. I arrived at Fort Eustis for the first time, and the greatest adventure of my life has started, and it is still going on. But today isn't about me. We are here to celebrate the graduation of these Deck and Engineering Officers of the Warrant Officer Basic Course 002-25. These graduates have spent the last 9 months working tirelessly for long hours to meet the grueling and almost impossible standards to acquire the knowledge and skills that qualify them to become the most unique warrant officers in the United States Army and serve as masters, mates, chief engineers, and assistant engineers aboard U.S. Army watercraft in the U.S. Army Transportation Corps. It is altogether fitting and proper that we recognize their accomplishments. You, the class members of Warrant Officer Basic Course 002-25, have reached an 8 bells moment in your life, in your military career. Today, one part of your career ends and a new career begins. Today, your enlisted career is ending, and although you may have pinned on W1 bars at Fort Rucker, now you are fully qualified to assume the duties as masters, mates, chief engineers, and assistant engineers aboard U.S. Army watercraft. You are now warrant officers in the U.S. Army Transportation Corps Marine Field. You are unique. There are no other officers quite like you, nor will they assume the unique authority and responsibilities that you will routinely assume. Remember, you are direct descendants of the very first warrant officers appointed in the U.S. Army that served as deck and engineering officers aboard the vessels of the Army Mine Lane Service. You've joined a unique club, and we welcome you. You have also received one of the finest technical educations in the Marine profession. Your technical knowledge and experience are superior to any of the newly graduated ensigns from the U.S. Naval Academy or the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. You are better qualified technically to assume your duties as masters and chief engineers than any of the newly graduated third mates and third assistant engineers newly graduated from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy or the 6 state maritime academies across the nation. You may be highly qualified to assume your new duties, but remember to be humble. You have basic knowledge and skills to start your new careers, but you lack experience. You must be ready to learn from each experience you have now and learn from more experienced mariners. Your primary goals are to accomplish the mission and bring your vessel and crew safely home from your mission. Look for a mentor who can help you develop technically and professionally. Avoid becoming complacent and strive to develop and sharpen your skills and knowledge. I would advise you always to do your best. If you do your best, it will always exceed the standards set by your superiors. You are now a lifelong learner. You should always strive to become a better mariner and more skilled officer. Speaking for myself, I've spent 55 years as a deck officer, and I still don't consider myself a master navigator. I've been teaching myself how to identify navigational stars since my first assignment as a deckhand aboard the U.S. Army vessel Lieutenant Colonel John U.D. Page, the finest ship in the United States Army. Off the coast of Vietnam, I can now identify 37 of the 57 navigational stars listed on the daily pages of the Nautical Almanac, but I'm working on identifying all 57. I still study weather and weather patterns and ocean currents. I set aside time to study algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and I'm cracking the book on spherical trigonometry. I want to understand the why behind the formulas that I've used to find my way across the sea. I'm looking to become that master navigator that uses not only the technical instruments and uses our technical equipment, but can read what he sees out there and become a wayfinder like Moana. I want to be able to use all the available information to navigate and keep my vessel safe. As an example, during my first Hawaiian assignment, the U.S. Army vessel, Lieutenant Colonel John U.D. Page, finest ship in the United States Army, was transferred to Hawaii and started hauling 29th Infantry equipment from Oahu to the island of Hawaii for training exercises on that island. The vessel worked the port of Kauai High, a small port tucked into a bowl-shaped corner of the island, where strong winds, the trade winds, and other winds blew constantly from variable directions, making working the small harbor difficult. Using the knowledge of weather, CW4 Williams and CW4 Ridley reasoned that the winds should become manageable if they timed their arrival and departure of the ship around civil twilight associated with sunrise and sunset. It worked. They discovered there was approximately 45 minutes of window before sunrise and after sunset that the ship could enter Kauai High with no wind, making maneuvering in the constricted port much more manageable. The standard night order was to enter Kauai High at 0600 every morning. As second mate aboard the U.S. Army vessel, Lieutenant Colonel John U.D. Page, standing the 4 to 8 watch, I miscalculated one morning and we entered at 0605. We secured the vessel well enough, but after we secured it from sea, when CW4 Ridley called me aside and asked if I had read the night orders. I replied I had. He asked me, did I arrive in time to enter the port? I said, I got here early and I slightly miscalculated. He then asked me if I understood the principles of time, speed, and distance. I replied, yes, I did. And he told me he wanted to arrive at 0600, not 0601, not 0559. He wanted to be there at 0600. I was there at 600 every morning after that. I learned a lot from him. He was one of my best mentors. And my favorite quote from him is that the sign of a superior vessel master was the ability to use his superior knowledge to avoid using his superior skills. You must always remember the ocean is always finding new ways to test if you're worthy to sail upon it. Now, you engineers may think that I'm being one-sided towards the deckies, but I am a deck. I have a quote for you. It comes from The Sand Pebbles by Richard McKenna. I suggest you find the book, copy out the quote, and post it where you can take a look at it. I first ran across this quote on the TS Empire State when I was wandering around and I got onto the wrong side of the ship and found myself with the engineers in their area where they like to smoke cigars and tell sea stories. And there in the window at the chief engineer's office was this quote. The quote is, "The secret was simple. They could not get along without the machinery. If it did not run, the ship would be a cold, dark, dead hulk in the water. And it did not work with the engines to order them to run and send down the Marines to shoot them if they did not run. No admiral could court-martial an engine. All machinery cared about a man was what did he know and what could he do with his two hands. And nobody could fool it on those things. Machinery always obeyed its own rules. And if you broke the rules, it did not matter how important or charming or pure in heart you were, you couldn't get away with it. Machinery was fair and honest, and it could force people to be fair and honest. Finally, always remember that you are not as smart as other people think you are. And you are never as smart as you think you are. For 51 years, I was blessed with a wife who took delight in popping at the bubble when my ego swelled with self-importance. Make sure you have someone that will do that for you. Before I relate the next experience, I need to relate some weather information. On the Atlantic side of Mexico, north winds blow off the Gulf, pushing warm, moist air masses south across the Mexican plain towards the Sierra Madre Mountains. As the winds push these masses up the mountain slopes, the air masses cool, the moisture condenses, and the water falls as rain on the leeward side. The winds keep pushing these masses up the slopes until they reach the ridge of the Sierra Madre, where they are tunneled through high mountain passes and their wind speeds increase. Then the winds start their descent to the Pacific Ocean. As they drop, the wind accelerates because the Pacific side of the mountains is steeper than the Gulf side. These winds reach the Pacific at a slight indentation in the western Mexican coast called the Gulf of Tehuantepec. And as the strong winds run 35 to 40 knots blow across the water, they quickly build waves of 15 to 20 feet that spread out 100 to 150 miles offshore. These warm, dry winds build storms that last 6 to 12 hours and are known as Tehuantepecers. In March of 1979, I was second mate on the U.S. Army vessel LT-536. It was a 143-foot seagoing tug built in 1942, and the technology wasn't much improved. We were on a voyage from Okinawa, Japan, back to Fort Eustis, Virginia. We were towing 2 BC barges, 600 feet astern of us, in a Honolulu rig. Each barge had a 65-foot tug secured in a cradle, welded to the deck of the barge. It looked extremely top-heavy, but the Navy assured us that it was seaworthy tow, and we had no problems when we experienced a 10-day storm crossing the Pacific. As we approached the Gulf of Tehuantepec, I could read the weather signs and see we were in for a rough night. Morning star observations went well, but ever since you could see the wind was rising and the seas were building. During evening twilight, I made my usual stars lights, but I was not happy with the sights. The horizon was hazy because of the dust blown by the winds out onto the horizon. As twilight deepened, it turned into a black, moonless night, so dark that it seemed to be impenetrable. Around 1930, I took a break from my sight reduction work to check for traffic. And I made a remark to my quartermaster that I was glad it was getting dark because I didn't have to see how big the waves were getting outside. They were running at least 15 to 20 feet now, I figured, and they seemed to be right level with the bridge wing. At that moment, the helmsman told me he was using full right rudder, but the ship was turning left. We had lost steering. I slowed the engines to all ahead half and called the vessel master, CW3 Evans, to the bridge. When he arrived, I reported the loss of steering. He slowed the engines to all ahead slow, and our immediate problem was to stop the left turn so we wouldn't cross the tow line. But we needed to keep some headway on so a slack tow line wouldn't foul the propeller. Meanwhile, the first mate and the first assistant engineer started tracing out the steering system to find the braking system. While CW3 Evans waited for a report from the first mate, I was going through my mind, figuring out what equipment and tools we would need to rig emergency steering. If we had to rig emergency steering, it would be heroic. We would have to work our way back to the stern, lift the start drying racks from the fantail, break loose the steering gear. Then we'd have to do this while remaining cognizant of a tow line moving back and forth across the stern and avoid being swept over the side by the huge seas. Then get out mooring lines, attach an eye to each steering gear, reeve the mooring lines through the closed chocks and the H-bits so that we can put it up to the capstan and rig emergency steering. As CW3 Evans contemplated when he would decide what to do, the bridge watch standers started getting panicky. I calmed it down, telling them it was our duty now to stay calm, wait for further instructions. We were there, we had a good vessel master. What we had to do was trust in him, get ready to do our jobs. There was a ship a couple of miles forward of our port beam, but they wouldn't be of much help. I told the watchstanders we had to do this ourselves. It would take us on if we wanted to abandon ship, but we were not abandoning ship. Around 22:30, CW3 Evans was informed that the steering problem was in the aft steering station. He decided to delay the decision on emergency steering. So he asked me how my star sights went. I told him I hadn't had much luck. I couldn't get a definitive position, so I was DRing. He told me he was assuming in the watch and I should lay below. I said to myself, lay below? How can I be a hero if I lay below? But he told me I had to lay below to get some rest and get ready if he needed me during the night. So I reluctantly obeyed orders. At 03:45 the next morning, I arrived on the bridge to assume the watch. The weather was much calmer now. The seas were light, the winds were light. Third mate related to me that the steering had been restored, but around 0200, the lights on the aft tow had disappeared. CW3 Evans thought the aft tow must have broken loose. I was supposed to waken him at daylight so we could go looking for the lost tow. I then went over to the chart table to see where we were and discovered no navigation at work had been done since I'd left the bridge. I asked where we were, and the third mate said, "That's your problem." I assumed the watch and started working out a position by swagging it. I took a scientific wild-ass guess, picked a point in the middle of the ocean, said that's where we were. I started preparing for morning stars, and as soon as it was light enough to see the horizon, I started shooting stars. It was still too dark to make out the tow behind us. As twilight brightened, civil twilight brightened, I was facing forward, observing a star, getting ready to mark it, when my quartermaster, facing aft, said, "We don't have to look far for that tow, sir." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Look." I turned around and looked, and sure enough, there was the aft tow in sight, floating along behind us, only now it was upside down. It had capsized during the night. I called CW3 Evans to the bridge. We could all see that the aft tow was floating behind us. We could see the fluorescent orange line we had painted at the water line. It confirmed the tow was not sinking and everything was safe and stable. So he laid below to get some more rest. At 0800, CW3 Evans came back to the bridge to report our circumstances to the commander at Fort Eustis. As I was working on my morning sights, I could hear Mr. Evans on the radio contacting the harbor master. He asked for the 73rd Trans Company commander to come down to the harbor master office so he could report the night events. When Captain Capizzi arrived, CW3 Evans tried to relate how the barge capsized. See, it wasn't just the seas that capsized, and it wasn't just the wind. It was a combination of everything. So he reported to Captain Capizzi that the elements had capsized the barge. There was a silence, a long silence. He got ready to rebroadcast his message when Captain Capizzi came back across saying, "Elephants? What are elephants doing out there?" And it became known to the crews and the officers aboard the boat that that was our night of the elephants. I've been sailing aboard the TS Empire State since 2016 as a principal navigation instructor, and I seem to enjoy popularity among the cadets. They enjoy my sea stories, although I think they only half believe them. All the cadets have heard how I navigated through a 10-day storm on a DR and then found Midway Island with no trouble, and was hailed by the Army as the second coming of Magellan. They have also heard about my 18-star cartwheel off the entrance to the Gulf of California, but I reserve this night of the elephants for the first class cadets as they finish their summer crew and prepare for their U.S. Coast Guard licensing exam. I want them to know, like I want you to know, that all of us that go to sea for any length of time will one dark night confront our own night of the elephants. All of us who have been to sea, I think, will attest to that. You must be prepared for that night. John Denver sings a song of the sleepy blue ocean. There's no such thing. The ocean never sleeps. It is never, ever restless. It is always coming up with new tests to find out if you are worthy to sail upon its waters. It is always testing, and you must be ready. Usually on occasions like this, a speaker offers the cliche, "We wish you fair winds and following seas." I will not offer that cliche today. Instead, I will not offer that cliche because you can learn nothing from fair winds and following seas. Instead, I would like to offer a prayer that the sea never tests you beyond your limits, and that you always accomplish your mission, and that you, your crew, and your ship return home safe from the sea. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Brockman. These soldiers are being inducted into the Transportation Corps and will wear the regimental crest on their Army service uniform. The regimental crest is a visible representation of the rite of passage into the United States Army Transportation Corps. Brick red and golden yellow are the official colors of the Transportation Corps. The traditional insignia of the branch, superimposed on the spearhead, denotes the spirit of the motto. The branch insignia consists of the rail car wheel, symbolizing rail transportation, wings, symbolizing air transportation, a mariner's helm for water transportation, and a U.S. highway marker shield indicative of land transportation. We will now induct these soldiers of Class 002-25 into the Transportation Corps. Will the graduates of Marine Engineering Officer and Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25, please rise. United States Army, Chief of Transportation, Certificate of Investiture. The soldiers of Marine Engineering Officer and Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25, are inducted into the United States Army Transportation Corps under the United States Army Regimental System and are invested with the responsibility of ensuring regimental continuity through furthering the qualities of professionalism, pride, and esprit de corps, which have made the Transportation Corps the spearhead of logistics. Given this 19th day of September, 2025. Signed, William C. Arnold, Colonel, United States Army, Chief of Transportation. We will now commence with our award ceremony to honor students for outstanding academic and leadership achievement. Will the distinguished honor graduates please come forward? The distinguished honor graduates is the student that has finished the course with the highest grade point average. They are the one person who took upon themselves to learn and retain the most, then proved it throughout the course. Warrant Officer 1, Andrew Henry of the Marine Deck Officer course achieved this honor with a final grade point average of 97.82%. Warrant Officer 1, Amber Neff of the Marine Engineering Officer course achieved this honor with a final grade point average of 97.42%. In recognition of this achievement, they will be awarded the Army Achievement Medal. CW3 Beck and CW3 Carter will present the awards. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Attention to orders. This is to certify the Secretary of the Army has awarded the Army Achievement Medal to WO1 Andrew Henry and WO1 Amber Neff for meritorious achievement while maintaining a high overall academic average of 97.82 and 97.42 throughout the tactical and technical phases of the Marine Deck and Marine Engineering Warrant Officer Basic Course. Your ability to comprehend and master the course required a high degree of leadership skill, tact, and responsibility. Warrant Officer 1 Henry's and Warrant Officer 1 Neff's performance set them apart from their peers and reflect great credit upon themselves, the Transportation Corps, and the United States Army. Signed, Ryan C. Cornell DeShare, Lieutenant Colonel, LG, Commanding. Please be seated. Mr. Henry and Ms. Neff will also receive an award from the Transportation Corps Regimental Association, a coin from the U.S. Army Transportation School, a certificate of achievement from the Warrant Officer Association, and a National Defense Transportation Association award. Ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished honor graduates. We will now present the Distinguished Leadership Award. Will the distinguished leaders please come forward? The Distinguished Leadership Award is for the student that has distinguished themselves from other students by demonstrating a can-do attitude, positive character, competence, and who display the total soldier concept. This award is designed for the student who is able to look at adversity and transform it into an achievable goal. The student has made valuable contributions toward achieving class objectives. The Distinguished Leadership Award for the Marine Deck Officer course is Warrant Officer 1 Hunter Bondi, and for the Marine Engineering Officer course is Warrant Officer 1 Luis Salmaron. Mr. Bondi and Mr. Salmaron have served as class leader with distinction, have been selected by their peers, and have gone above and beyond the standard to receive this award. Presenting this award is CP3 Beck and CP3 Carter. Certificate of Achievement awarded to WO1 Hunter Bondi and WO1 Luis Salmaron. Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25 Distinguished Leader Award for outstanding performance while maintaining superior motivation, accountability, supervision, drill and ceremony, communication, and total soldier concept. Your great leadership skill, tact, and responsibility were overwhelming evidence of your professional and excellent performance. Your enthusiasm and selfless commitment reflect great credit upon yourself, the United States Army Transportation School, and the United States Army. Signed, Linda A. Nichols, Deputy to the Commandant, U.S. Army Transportation School. Mr. Bondi and Mr. Salmaron will also receive a coin from the U.S. Army Transportation School, a certificate of achievement from the Transportation Corps Regimental Association, and an award from National Defense Transportation Association. Ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished leaders. We will now present diplomas to the Marine Engineering Officer and Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25. CW4 retired Brockman will present the diplomas. CB3 Beck and CB3 Carter will congratulate the graduates. Please hold your applause until all students have been recognized. Will the graduates of Marine Engineering Officer and Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25, come forward and receive your diplomas and Marine certificate. Again, please feel free to come forward and take photographs. WO1 Andrew Henry, Marine Deck Officer. Mr. Henry will be assigned to the 489 Transportation Detachment, Joint Base Langley, Eustis, Virginia. WO1 Amber Neff, Marine Engineering Officer. Ms. Neff will be assigned to the 489 Transportation Detachment, Joint Base Langley, Eustis, Virginia. WO1 Hunter Bondi, Marine Deck Officer. Mr. Bondi will be assigned to the 605th Transportation Detachment, Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Hawaii. WO1 Luis Salmaron, Marine Engineering Officer. Mr. Salmaron will be assigned to the 605th Transportation Detachment, Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Hawaii. CW2 Jimmy Pruitt, Marine Engineering Officer. Mr. Pruitt will be assigned to the 5th Composite Watercraft Company, Yokohama, Japan. WO1 Wellington David, Marine Deck Officer. Mr. David will be assigned to HHC, 4th Chapter, Hawaii. WO1, Kadeen Johnson, Marine Deck Officer. Mr. Johnson will be assigned to the 5th Composite Watercraft Company, Yokohama, Japan. WO1, Leon Norris, Marine Deck Officer. Mr. Norris will be assigned to the 5th Composite Watercraft Company, Yokohama, Japan. WO1, James Singleton, Marine Deck Officer. Mr. Singleton will be assigned to HHC, Fort Shafter, Hawaii. WO1, Derek Taylor, Marine Engineering Officer. Mr. Taylor will be assigned to the 5th Composite Watercraft Company, Yokohama, Japan. WO1, Pilar Ueda Garcia, Marine Engineering Officer. Ms. Ueda Garcia will be assigned to the 5th Composite Watercraft Company, Yokohama, Japan. WO1, Philip Valier, Marine Engineering Officer. Mr. Valier will be assigned to the 7th Transportation Brigade Expeditionary, Joint Base Langley Eustis, Virginia. WO1, Luke Wilson, Marine Deck Officer. Mr. Wilson will be assigned to the 5th Composite Watercraft Company, Yokohama, Japan. At this time, would the audience please stand for the singing of the Transportation Corps song, the Army song, and remain standing for the departure of the official party. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Nothing happens till something moves.
I present the Marine Engineering Officer and Marine Deck Officer, Warrant Officer Basic Course, Class 002-25. At this time, the classes would like to present a plaque to the Marine Engineering and Marine Operations Branch as a token of their appreciation to the Transportation School.
Mr. Carter, on behalf of our class, we just wanted to give you all a plaque for putting up with
They're all characters, they all have their individual, personalities, and it just made the class even better. So, congratulations. I look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Would like to thank you for sharing your kind wisdom, sharp insights, and just the right amount of sarcasm to get us through these past months.
Hey, well, I'm not going to hold it. But hey, so everybody don't know this, but this is probably I think this is class number 30 for me, right? And I got to say, this is the best class I've had out of the last 4 years. So my long time down at Rucker, and then this one, I gotta say, this is the best class I've ever had. Long traditions, we have long memories of you all, and I appreciate all your time and dedication to learning this new MOS and this new trade. Everybody did a great job. Thank you.
Mr. Thom, at this time, we'd like to award coins from Chief of Transportation. Thank you, Mr. Thom. This concludes the graduation ceremony. Thank you for your attendance. You are invited to come congratulate the graduates.